Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes. Let me apologize in advance. I do have a bad cold this week, so if I sound a little more nasally than normal, that is why. Today we are inside a 2014 GMC Sierra Denali, and we're taking a look at the GMC IntelliLink system, also known as Chevy MyLink. We're starting off by taking a look at the 7-inch reconfigurable LCD instrument cluster. It's nestled between the tachometer and the speedometer, and you'll find this in the Denali trim as standard and available in a certain number of trims in both the Silverado as well as the Sierra. It's all controlled by a 4-way joystick-like button control panel on the steering wheel with an OK button. Right up here we have digital gauges. These may look like analog gauges, but these are not real gauges across the top. There are 4 of them there. And as you can see, we're in the first skin that's available in this 7-inch LCD cluster. There are several different themes that you can choose from. This is the standard one. And if I press the tow haul button, you'll see that that gauge over there on the right changes to a transmission temperature gauge. As one of the things that's really snazzy about the system is that the transitions are all very nicely animated. This is very closely related to the upper level Q system that you'll find in certain Cadillac models, where the Cadillac has a full LCD instrument cluster. This one has a smaller version of that. It all runs on the same software, and all the same things that I liked about that Cadillac Q system are true with this system. The graphics are all very, very well done, and the transitions are all incredibly smooth. Let's just dive right into the feature set here. So right now we're taking a look at our fuel economy over the last 50 miles. This gives you a running 50-mile average. That's right there on the right. Over here it tells you the best 50-mile average that the car has had since it's been reset. Our best 50-mile average is 22.1 miles per gallon, which was very good for a 5.3-liter V8. We also have our fuel used and a timer. We give us speed limit information. Right now we're on a gravel road, so it doesn't know anything about that. We have our trailer brake controller. It's integrated into this vehicle. That is a $230 option, well worth it in my mind, and you can control it via the buttons on the dashboard, and then you can see the readout right here. We can then move down to our engine hours and idle hours meter. We have a blank page. We have a digital speedometer. We also have trip A, trip B. We have our instant fuel economy, as well as a status gauge telling you whether or not the car is in its cylinder deactivation mode. Moving on to the next screen, we have an oil meter, and then we have our tire pressure readout. Navigating the system is very easy. As you can see, there are arrows to help you. So this arrow right here tells us that we can move left, we can also move right, and we can move up and down like we've been doing right here. In this particular screen, if we move right, a little gauge option will pop up right there, and we can choose what the distance for this fuel economy reading is, whether we want it to be the average of 25 miles, 50 miles, 400 miles, if we want to reset our best score, etc. We can see that our animations in the system are all incredibly slick right there. If we move back and forth between that screen, you can see how well that does. Certain of these other options also have menu options right there, as you can see. Speed limit doesn't, so that little option right there is grayed out. Now let's move left. If we move left, we now will see we have the options to choose between info screens, audio screens, phone, navigation, as well as system settings. You can also scroll all the way back to the top. We're going to take a look at the audio settings right now. You can move up and down in your XM channels by going up and down with that same button arrangement. We can also click right, and this allows us to browse media. We can also change media devices, choose from favorites, etc. So I'm going to go up and choose radio media, and we can go down to my iPhone that's plugged into the system. And you can see right now that we're playing a track by Pink. You can see album art right there, and you can tell that we're playing this via the Bluetooth connection. One of the nice features about this system, as well as Cadillac Q and all the other different General Motors branded versions of this same software, is that they work very well with a lot of devices over Bluetooth, and they provide a lot of the most recent feature sets of the Bluetooth standard, which includes being able to browse your device via Bluetooth in this system. So you can see right now we have access via Bluetooth to the playlists that are on our device. You can choose what playlist you want to play right here via this. You can just click on the button right there, and you'll see the tracks list up here in a second via Bluetooth. It's not quite as fast as if you were to connect via USB, but the interaction as well as the quality of the interaction is very much the same whether you're connected via USB or via Bluetooth with this system, and that's just not true of most competing systems. If we go to the favorite screen, this is where you'll find your presets in the system, but they're more than just regular old radio presets, because you can set anything to one of these presets. Right there you can see that there are some FM stations, there's some XM stations that people have programmed into this vehicle before, but you can also program artists and songs right into the audio favorites, and it will look them up from a connected device and start playing them if you click on that preset. If we move back left in the system, we're going to go down to the phone interface. You can see we have a phone connected. The only thing we do is go right. If we go right, we have access to recent calls as well as contacts. This will bring up your complete contacts list in the system. You can connect and disconnect devices. You can also hang up in the system right from this interface. We go down to the navigation interface. We get a little navigation screen that'll show up right there in the middle. It shows you a zoomed in view of your travel map, which is very handy. Entering a navigation destination in the system can't be done using this interface, but it can be done using the 8-inch touchscreen that's in the dashboard or the natural voice commands. If we move back to the left, we'll go take a look at the last option, which is settings. This allows us to change between US and metric. We can also change our display theme, which we're going to do now, so you can see what the different ones look like. This is the technology theme. I think this is quite attractive. We get some additional animation. It looks a little bit simpler because we don't have 4 dials, instead we just have 2. We have the engine temperature and we have fuel over there. But if we click the tow button on the car, then you can see that we then add transmission temperature as well as oil pressure to this display, and you turn it off by just hitting that tow button again. Again, we have limited displays here, but if we press the tow haul button, we get some additional gauge displays right there. Chrysler was the first one to use a large LCD instrument cluster like this in their pickup truck. Now we have this in the General Motors series of pickup trucks. I think this is probably the most attractive one I've seen so far. One big, huge flaw with the Chrysler system, I do like the graphics and I like the way that it works. However, with the Chrysler system, you can't display current media information or browse your media device with certain media devices. So if you have an iPhone plugged in or certain USB devices, it will just tell you that a track is playing, but it won't give you any track information, and you can't browse that track with this screen in the car. It seems kind of a waste. We haven't seen what the Ford system is going to be like, but it just looks like a bigger version of what they had in the pickup truck from last year. It's now on a 7-inch display or an 8-inch display instead of the 4-inch display that they had before. However, that software in general doesn't seem to be quite as advanced as this software that General Motors is using. That's true for both this display as well as the display that's nestled in the dashboard. As I said, this software is based on Cadillac CUE, but it uses a different physical interface. It also uses different icons, etc. The underlying software is all the same, but the changes to the screen are very important. Instead of using a glass digitized touchscreen, very much like you'd find in an iPhone that has a glass surface that you touch, etc., that's a capacitive touchscreen, this is a resistive touchscreen, which means the physical action of pressing your finger on the screen is what actually causes the screen to recognize your touch. So this has sort of a matte finish on it. It's going to scratch a little bit more easily than the glass screen that you'll find on the Cadillac. It's not going to be quite as crisp to view, and it also will not recognize multi-touch gestures quite as easily as the Cadillac system. So the use of finger swipe motions in this system is very limited versus the Cadillac system. That's part of why we get more physical buttons right down there below. We're going to start out on this home screen. It's divided into various applets. As you can see right here, we have settings, navigation, phone, audio, Pandora, which integrates with the Pandora app on your smartphone device, weather, and OnStar. These arrow buttons on either side would bring us to additional app pages if we had additional apps installed, but our system does not. In most screens in the system, you'll see this little arrow right here on the right. This brings up the favorites or shortcuts bar in the system. Again, this is more than just a radio preset button because you can add anything you want in here. You can set it to a particular song or a playlist, etc. in the system. It doesn't just have to be a radio station. Right now you see we have 5 options right there across the bottom, and if I move it to the left or to the right, we can drag that across and get different presets with this little red dot there to tell you where you are. You can also drag this option all the way up. We can still drag this list across, as you can see, and then we can drag it down to collapse it. Certain dragging motions are not going to be as easy to do in this system as they are in Cadillac's CUE, but it's really just because of the touchscreen in this system. You can drag that down once more to close that and collapse it. We move over to the audio tab. This is where you'll find your radio as well as your media interface. If we hit the browse button, we can tune to our various stations. We also have categories right over there, AM categories. You can drag the little slider around like that to make that a little bit easier, and you can also do the same over here on the right. Over here on the menu button, this is where you'll find tone settings, auto volume settings, etc. If we hit the radio button again, this is how you'll change to FM. If we hit the radio button again, that's how we get XM satellite radio. If we want to hit the media button's how you get on to your iDevice or your USB device or whatever it is that you have plugged into the system. Now if we're on here and we click the browse option, this is where you'll get your playlists, your artists, albums, songs, genres, etc. in the system. The system does offer complete and full voice commands for all of your devices. It does take a little bit of a while to catalog all that data on your device so that they are voice commandable, but the voice commands are among the best in the industry. Very much like Cadillac Q, IntelliLink takes a novel approach to plugging more than one USB device into the system. So if I had two iPhones or two USB devices and I plugged them both into the system, then I would actually have one music library with everything amalgamated together. So it would just jam everything into one big music library and then play for you. So if your two devices had identical content, then you'd see everything listed in this system twice. There's a different take on things than My Ford Touch, where you actually have to select a device and it will only play things from that device, whereas this system will let you search across all of your plugged-in media devices and play songs with the same interface. Instead of requiring you to go back to the home screen, we do have shortcut buttons across the top for our audio, as well as our phone interface, which we'll take a look at now. We have voice commands, of course. We have contacts, recent calls. We have access to a full and complete keypad in the system, which makes it easier to dial numbers and interact with things. Your voicemail, as well as your phone interface right there. With the home button, we'll take a look at the nav via this option. Again, we do have that shortcut button across the top to take a look at the nav system as well. We do have 3D map view right here, as you can see. We have topographical information, very much like you'd find in BMW's iDrive. And you can see that because I haven't touched the screen in a while, that the screen has now gone to a larger map view to allow you to see a little bit more screen real estate right there. We also have lost the shortcut buttons across the top, only displaying the one icon showing what we're in right now. This is different than Cadillac Q again because the Cadillac Q system does have a proximity sensor, very much like a modern smartphone. So when you get your hand closer to that Cadillac Q screen, it would instantly pop up those shortcut buttons for you and the other menu buttons. This system, you actually have to touch the screen first, and then the buttons appear on the bottom and the buttons appear across the top. Destination entry in the system is very easy. On the keyboard right here, you can just type in the address. You can just type it right in there naturally. So just street number 123 Main Street. This is very snappy because it is not actually looking up the address right here. What's unique with this system is once I hit the go button, it will actually start searching for the address. So even if I have a spelling error in that address, or I got the street number or some other information in there incorrect, it will actually try and search for it and correct it in the system. So you can see right here, it has found the closest thing to my entry there that it has in the system, and then it'll give you that option right there. If there are multiple options available based on your input entry, then it will give you all those in a list. You can just hit the go button there. It makes it very easy to enter an address into this system. The voice commands work very well in this system, and overall entering an address is much easier than in the My Ford Touch product line. It's also a little bit easier and a little bit more convenient just because of that autocorrect feature than the Chrysler Uconnect system. As with many modern vehicles, because the infotainment system is highly integrated into the car's electronics, you have a wide variety of vehicle settings as well as just system settings. So while older systems on the market used to just have options that pertained only to this screen on the dashboard, this system, very much like My Ford Touch as well as Uconnect, has a wide variety of vehicle settings from comfort and convenience to collision detection systems. You can choose how you want your park assist to alert you, whether you want it to beep at you, whether it's on and you have your tow bar attached, so that we can try and sort of compensate for the tow bar when it's on the vehicle. Right there in that same screen, you can choose whether you want it to vibrate your seat or just beep at you. I think the vibrating seat is kind of an interesting thing. It sounds a little gimmicky, but it actually works very well. Back on the home screen, we have Pandora. This does require that you have the Pandora app loaded on your phone. It works very well, and it does give you full access to all of your Pandora playlists. You can fast forward, go backwards. You can thumbs up and thumbs down songs as well. We have a weather app. This weather information is delivered by XM, so you do have to have an XM satellite subscription in order for this weather forecast to work. This Onstar button is a little bit interesting because Onstar was really one of the first telematics systems available on the market, but because of its age, it doesn't exactly integrate with this system. This button really just calls Onstar for you. So you can see you press that button and it allows you to voice command the Onstar system. You get exactly the same thing by just pressing the Onstar button on the rearview mirror. So there's nothing particularly unique about that Onstar button. So you can't interact with the Onstar services via the screen. You can just use that to press the Onstar button. Depending on your software version or the vehicle that you're in, you will also see an additional microphone button right over here. That microphone button would be for pass-through voice recognition, to your iPhone or your other smart device. You can just press that button, and it essentially operates like pressing the voice recognition button on your device, as if I were to press the home button on my device and get Siri to pop up right there. That would be exactly the same as if I'd press that microphone button. Again, it really just depends on your software version as well as the vehicle that you're in. Overall, I give this system 8.5 points out of 10, just about half a point above my Ford Touch. My Ford Touch is very fully featured, but it is definitely getting a little bit old, and it's really obvious when you take a look at the way that it handles your media library as well as the navigation system in that Ford device. The Ford system does offer some features that you won't find in the system, like the ability to operate as a Wi-Fi hotspot, something that you'll also find in Chrysler's Uconnect product, etc. But overall, I think I would rather have this system than my Ford Touch. Without question, a big feature of the system is that 7-inch LCD nestled right there in the instrument cluster. That's something that does seem to be a bit better than everything that I've seen about the 2015 Ford F-150. I rank that also slightly above the same system that Chrysler is using in the Ram 1500. Versus Chrysler's Uconnect, I rate this just slightly behind in terms of usability. I think the graphics in this system are snazzier, and I do like the interaction of that LCD between the gauges, but I think that this system in the dash is not as fully featured as Uconnect. There are definitely more apps immediately available on Uconnect. Uconnect also integrates a cellular modem with the system, so you can download apps right to your car inside the system. You can also use that cellular modem to act as a Wi-Fi hotspot. So whereas the Ford system, you have to plug in a USB cellular modem into the system and have it share that with things in the car, the Uconnect system has it integrated right into the system. So you just activate that, and then you can share that with people in the car. You can turn it on and turn it off on a monthly basis or a pay-per-use basis type thing with Sprint. I think that's a little bit handier than anything else that I've seen out on the market. The navigation isn't quite as attractive in that Uconnect system, but it is just about as good. It's also just about as snappy as this system. And that brings me to my last point, which is that the last few interactions I've had with Cadillac Q's software has been getting a bit better. If you were familiar with my earliest reviews of Cadillac Q, I was really quite disappointed with its performance. It seemed to freeze regularly, it crashed now and then. That seems to have been completely solved in the later software versions of the system. Overall, if you're debating whether or not to pay extra for the system, if you're looking at a model of Sierra or Silverado that does not come standard with this system, take my advice. It's definitely worth the plunge. I would definitely spend at least $1,000 on this system. Depending on the trim level that you're looking at in the Sierra or the Silverado, it can be around $1,000 or so to get yourself into this system, and I think that's about $1,000 well spent. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the IntelliLink system in the GMC Sierra Denali. Go ahead and click those links down there at the bottom of your screen to subscribe to this channel, as well as to click on over to the full review of the Sierra when it comes live in about a day or two.